Did you hear the news? My brand new book, The Story Grid Masterwork Analysis Guide to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, is officially available for pre-order. This book is like a writer's study guide to how and why the first book in the Harry Potter series works, and in it, I literally walk you through the story on a scene-by-scene basis to show you how J.K. Rowling included all the key scenes and conventions of the action genre, raised the stakes of the story in a way that's appropriate for middle-grade readers, built an immersive story world full of compelling characters and opportunities for life and death conflicts, and used red herrings to pull off an awesome plot twist, plus a whole lot more. I'm so excited to share it with you, and I've put together a really fun bonus package that you can get your hands on when you pre-order a copy of the book today. To learn more and to get all the details, go to savannahgilbo.com/masterwork. Keep in mind that whatever happens in these scenes needs to tangibly affect the outcome of the story, your plot, and your character's development. It needs to alter the story's course of direction. It can't just be a flashy or exciting distraction simply to keep the reader entertained. That won't work. These set-piece action sequences must feel so integral to the storyline and the reader's enjoyment that they cannot be edited out of the final product. Welcome to the Fiction Writing Made Easy podcast. My name is Savannah Gilbo, and I'm here to help you write a story that works. I want to prove to you that writing a novel doesn't have to be overwhelming. So each week, I'll bring you a brand new episode with simple, actionable, and step-by-step strategies that you can implement in your writing right away. So whether you're brand new to writing or more of a seasoned author looking to improve your craft, this podcast is for you. So pick up a pen and let's get started. In today's extra special bonus episode, I'm going to give you a sneak peek inside my new book, A Story Grid Masterwork Analysis Guide of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. You've probably heard me talk about this book over the last few weeks, but just in case you haven't, it's essentially a guidebook of how and why the first Harry Potter book works. So if you're writing a fantasy novel or any kind of novel with life and death stakes, and if you like the story grid methodology, you will absolutely love this book. I'm super proud of it, and I can't wait to share some of it with you today. So speaking of that, I'm going to share a part of the introduction where I talk about plot catalysts. So these are some of the conventions that are unique to the action genre, and I'll share how they show up in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So yes, I'm literally going to read you part of my book. Like I said, it's part of the introduction. And if you enjoy it and want to check out my book and all the extra special pre-order bonuses I'm giving away with purchase, you can go to savannahgilbo.com/masterwork to get all the details. Let's examine the plot catalysts that make things even harder for the protagonist. Plot catalysts are things that naturally arise from the environment to create conflict and force the protagonist to switch up their tactics in order to reach their goals. In other words, they put pressure on the protagonist to grow, change, and start making different choices as well as taking different actions that show readers how they've grown and changed. When writing an action story, you'll need to include 3 main plot catalysts: a speech in praise of the villain, a ticking clock or deadline, and 1 or more set-piece action sequences. Let's take a look at how these plot catalysts show up in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Number 1, the speech in praise of the villain. In an action story, the speech in praise of the villain helps to define the large power divide between the protagonist and the antagonist. It puts pressure on and motivates the protagonist to level up their knowledge and skills before facing the antagonist. In many cases, we learn what the antagonist wants and why they want it during the speech in praise of the villain, but not always. In Chapter 4 of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Hagrid says, "There was this wizard who went bad. As bad as you could go. Worse. Worse than worse. His name was Voldemort, and about 20 years ago, he started looking for followers. Got him, too. Some were afraid, some just wanted a bit of his power, 'cause he was getting himself power all right. Dark days, Harry. Didn't know who to trust. Didn't dare get friendly with strange wizards or witches. Terrible things happened. He was taken over. Course, some stood up to him, and he killed him. Horribly. One of the only safe places left was Hogwarts. Reckon Dumbledore's the only one you know who was afraid of. Didn't dare try taking the school, not just then anyway." And then he goes on to tell Harry about how Voldemort killed Harry's parents, and how no one ever lived after he decided to kill him. No one except you, and he killed some of the best witches and wizards of the age. This speech shows us that Voldemort is a very powerful wizard. And later, when we learn that Voldemort wants the Sorcerer's Stone so that he can come back to life and power, it helps us understand what's at stake. If Voldemort succeeds, terrible things will happen, and life as Harry and the wizarding world knows it will essentially be over. Number 2, a deadline or ticking clock. In an action story, a deadline or ticking clock helps add tension to the plot by giving the protagonist very little or no time to solve their problems. This kind of time pressure forces the protagonist to consider options they wouldn't normally consider and to act without overthinking. The deadline, a specific time, or ticking clock, time pressure without a specific time frame, are useful devices to add excitement in any story as long as they emerge organically from the setting and circumstances. In Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, this kind of time pressure is highlighted in multiple instances. For example, in Chapter 16, we learn that Hagrid told a stranger in the pub how to get past the three-headed dog guarding the trapdoor on the third-floor corridor. This means it's only a matter of time until Snape, really Quirrell, takes action. He now has everything he needs to get to the Sorcerer's Stone, except he still has to get past Dumbledore. A few pages later, we learn that Dumbledore has been called away from the castle, which means Snape, really Quirrell, will most likely act tonight. That's a deadline. Notice how the time pressure escalates and the deadline gets more specific over time. This is a fantastic way to up the stakes in an action story, and it's an effective way to, quote-unquote, force your protagonist to grow and change. Number 3, set-piece action sequences. Set-piece action sequences are mini action stories within the global story. These scenes or groups of scenes move the story forward in a significant way, and they're often the larger, more exciting moments that your external plot and your protagonist's internal arc pivot around. This is why they usually occur in or around the obligatory moments, and why they're often the most memorable scenes in a story. This is also why set-piece action sequences can be challenging to write. They often require a lot of planning and layering to create something that moves both the external and internal storylines forward. You'll need to manage and layer together multiple plot lines, including subplots, to ensure the emotion of the set piece is building and hitting the intended emotional note, which is usually excitement in action stories, throughout the entire scene. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone has quite a few set-piece action sequences, but my favorite occurs in Chapter 16 through the trapdoor. In this penultimate chapter, Harry, Ron, and Hermione must successfully pass several challenges in order to receive the Sorcerer's Stone. They have to circumvent a ferocious three-headed dog, escape from the strangling tendrils of Devil's Snare, retrieve a specific flying key from amongst hundreds, win a life-size game of wizard's chess, and finally master a riddle of poisonous potions before Harry can face Voldemort in the final chamber. This scene is particularly fun because each of these challenges emphasizes a different magical skill, which corresponds to the Hogwarts professor who instituted that particular challenge. It also helps highlight Harry's strengths and weaknesses and shows why Harry, Ron, and Hermione are stronger together than apart. Harry, Ron, and Hermione each bring a different set of skills to this series of challenges. As first-year students, none of them have the magical experience or talent that would allow them to reach the Sorcerer's Stone on their own. They must help each other move from challenge to challenge. I will highlight some of the other set-piece action sequences in this masterwork guide, but keep in mind that a set piece can be one scene or a sequence of scenes. And remember that in the Story Grid universe, we don't determine where a scene starts and ends solely based on a change in location or cast of characters. We're looking for a defined and meaningful value shift that impacts the global story as well as a change in the protagonist's scene goal. When writing your own set-piece action sequences, keep in mind that whatever happens in these scenes needs to tangibly affect the outcome of the story, your plot, and your character's development. It needs to alter the story's course of direction. It can't just be a flashy or exciting distraction simply to keep the reader entertained. That won't work. These set-piece action sequences must feel so integral to the storyline and the reader's enjoyment that they cannot be edited out of the final product. All right, I hope you enjoyed this little sneak peek into the introduction of my new book, the Story Grid Masterwork Analysis Guide to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. There's a whole lot more waiting for you inside the book. We talk about story structure, character development, world building, and then I even take you on a deep dive into every single scene of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone to see how each scene works and how each of the scenes work together to create the final product. So if you want to learn more about the book or pre-order a copy, you can go to savannahgilbo.com/masterwork. And once you get to that page, you'll see there are a handful of pre-order bonuses available should you purchase a copy between now and August 4th. And my personal favorite of the pre-order bonuses is a 2-hour live workshop that Abigail and I are hosting, where we're going to take you on a deep dive into the climactic moment of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So you probably know what scene I'm talking about. It's where the kids travel through that trap door, navigate each of those obstacles in the chambers under the school, and Harry eventually faces Voldemort in that final chamber. So it's going to be really fun. We're going to talk through that, and then we will do about an hour of Q&A where we will just talk about anything related to writing, anything related to Harry Potter, and things like that. So like I said, that's just one of the pre-order bonuses available. To learn about all of the pre-order bonuses and to get your hands on a copy of the book, go to savannahgilbo.com/masterwork. So that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and for showing your support. If you're an Apple user, I'd really appreciate it if you took a few seconds to leave a rating and a review. Your ratings and reviews tell Apple that this is a podcast that's worth listening to. And in turn, your reviews will help get this podcast in front of more fiction writers just like you. As always, I'll be back next week with a brand new episode full of actionable tips, tools, and strategies to help you become a better writer and craft a story you're proud of. Until then, happy writing.